right. I think I've already said happy Friday to everyone, but I'll say it again. Thanks for coming along. We've got some great choices today. I really wanted to see Ali's presentation on social contracts, so I'm even torn being here. So thanks very much for coming. I do want to open this up in that if you have questions at any point, this is your presentation. I'm not scared of the interaction. I actually really love that. So if you're thinking something, oh, I wonder about that, please say something. I will definitely celebrate that. All right. So I give you that. That's your responsibility today to make that happen. All right. So in my pitch, I sort of said, you know, there's many times where we're feeling a little bit maybe despondent, or we're struggling to get up in the mornings. We're feeling like we're lacking motivation and things like that. Hands up, who's had that sort of feeling in recent, you know, times? In the last year? Yeah. In the last 6 months? In the last few weeks? All right. So I'm talking to my people, right? Yeah. And I certainly have as well. And it was sort of what inspired some of this as I was sitting there, for want of better language, sweating my balls off in an infrared sauna. And I started sort of thinking about, you know, what led me there. And it was this sort of topic. So I'll talk a little bit about that and some of my journey. And I feel like an old man holding my glasses as a professor talking to you. So I'll tuck those on. All right, so just a couple of stats. When we're sort of talking about being busy, we often sort of talk about busyness as a badge of honour. Oh, how are you going? Oh, so busy. Yeah, work's busy. Yeah, nah, kids, family, yeah, so busy. We talk about it as this badge of honour, but it's really fucking not. Like it's actually something that leads to that feeling of lack of motivation and that overwhelm that we feel as so many things are happening in our lives. Now here I've talked about some work challenges. So in an open text research survey, 80% of people saying they feel overwhelmed. All right, and some of the contributing factors to that was too many passwords to remember. As a consultant going in and out of different companies, well, it's not just one set of passwords, multiple, too many apps, constant flow of information bombarding us from so many different things. You're on Jira, you know, you're on Confluence, you're hitting sort of stuff. There's emails coming in. You go into one meeting and there's 100 emails and you're still in the middle of trying to catch up on the one or two before that. And every time that you're trying to write one email, another email comes in, which then distracts you because you think, oh, I'm still waiting on that report from Steve and haven't got that yet. And so suddenly now you're distracted and you can't even get that very first email out, and then another 3 come in. It's that sort of thing. And too many devices. We're working between pads, tablets, laptops, workstations, phones, sometimes multiple phones. And so what is that contributing to in the workplace that we're in now? Well, this LinkedIn study just very recently, actually, 67% of Aussies overwhelmed by the pace of work change. That was higher than a lot of other Western countries, that Australians were feeling it more than anywhere else. And one of the big contributing factors is they're not feeling like they're getting the guidance and support that they need in order to be able to face the challenges that they have. What are some of those challenges? Well, I think we've all sort of at times felt worried that we might be sort of getting left behind a little bit in the career, that things are moving, or others, you know, as Elaine sort of spoke to, maybe some of the loudest people in the room are sort of getting the promotions and we might not, even though we're sort of putting in some of the good work. That pace of change, which is obviously, you know, one of those other threads that we were talking about there. Struggling to develop new skills. AI has obviously sort of taken over in recent years, and at the same time as you just sort of start to experiment with one, there's another generation tool coming on, or there's some other sectors that are being influenced by that. And then I think the really big thing is struggling to advocate for our personal needs, especially in the market that we're in, where the market's tough. And there's talk about everyone has to come back to the office now. We're going to, you know, in a lot of US companies, that's sort of becoming quite mandatory for people to come back to the office. And we're going, but I just got into this zone of having a little bit of quiet time. Last year, Tom talked about some of the statistics around what gets the best performance. Well, everyone going back to the office after being used to working from home, that was having a big mental health impact on them, and they were struggling, so performance was down. But then CEOs and bosses were worried about people working from home all the time, too many distractions and not getting performance, impact, or getting performance impacts that they didn't like. And so actually the studies came back that it was the blend that was working well. That's where we were getting the performance. But is that going to go away? Logically and emotionally, we would think, well, hopefully not, because we've learnt a few things and we can do some great stuff, and I can find that work balance in being able to do those things, and that's becoming important to us. We'll talk about that in a second. So all of these things are not so much a badge of honour about being busy, but it's a curse of feeling overwhelmed by so many things. Now, the next image took quite a few goes with some image generation AI work, and it just wasn't going the way I want. And there were some weird faces and fingers and babies with smushed faces, and it wasn't good. But it wasn't just not work that's affecting us. I said, can you give me an image in the style of Edward Munch, The Scream? And it said, well, I can't do that because it's copyrighted. I said, well, just in the style of. So, yeah, this is how we're feeling in our work life. Now, if you blend, the struggles that we have with family, with bills, with fitness, you get filmits. And maybe that's a new phrase that we can wrap up all of our personal life things into. I'm suffering from so many filmits at the moment. There's so many things pushing me, and there's some quite dire images there. But I think sometimes that greyness, that I just can't be bothered, that when you just want to roll over and hit snooze again on the alarm, and my border collie Neo is snuggling up to me and going, you know what, it's raining outside. I don't have stand up till 9:30. I can get up at 9:28. That'll be fine. Oh, actually, maybe 9:26. I need a coffee. Oh no, I've got a can of V in the fridge. That'll be fine. So we've got all those things that we're sort of trying to deal with, and all of those pressures that we're under. Now, one of the studies that Microsoft did around burnout, was showing that 62% of Australian workers reported being burnt out. The global average is around 48%. So why are we feeling that a little bit more in Australia? And that 66% of Australian managers are suffering burnout in comparison to 53% of global managers. So there's something going on from an Australian perspective where we're used to having, the Aussie way of life. We're used to, having, we are in an extremely lucky country. So why are we feeling the impacts of burnout? And especially probably in Melbourne, because we were the biggest lockdown state. We do have some PTSD from that shit. You might sort of say, oh no, I've bounced back, but we are all trying to cope with the resulting fallout from that, whether it's the way the job market is, or whether it's the way it's impacted some of our routines, our habit loops, because it was the biggest disruption to our day-to-day life that we have probably ever experienced. And so it's only natural then that the flow on to the workplace, and this came from Tech Talent Outlook, just recently published, and I think some of these stats are really telling. For me, the two biggest things are that people are, there's a lot of people that are really looking and considering around changing jobs. Now, if you are feeling overwhelmed and you're wondering, what is my purpose? Why am I doing this? Why am I putting up with some of these things in the workplace? That might lead you to the thought of changing jobs, but then we come up against the market being quite tough. And so suddenly the hope of being able to find something new becomes something that adds to the overwhelm, because we might not have some of the opportunities that we would in a buoyant market. And so that adds to the little thing at the back of the head that plays on us. And so we'll talk a little bit about that in a number of ways. And it's not just about salary and benefits and non-monetary benefits. It's about this component of that work-life balance. So, when you see jobs being advertised around, yep, there's hybrid capability, or it's remote and things, that there's some room for some discussions in there. If the advertisement says, must be someone who's willing to think on their feet, work in a high pressure environment, must be resilient, okay, that's a big red flag. That is a toxic environment. Stay the fuck away from that. You actually might think, oh, I'm going to change jobs. This would be really good. No, you could end up in a much worse position. So maybe I'll pause for a moment. I've relayed a few sort of stats there about the environment we're in. Does that sort of ring true with you guys? Does that sort of prompt any thoughts, feelings, emotions? You can share. You can shout out. Yeah, yeah. No.
It is hard when you're working from home and you're just like clicking from 50 tabs or browsers open, more 50 tabs and just aren't running wider open.
And you left it open so that it would help you remember why it was open. I love that you've raised that point. You're like a mind reader. Can I give you your $50 later? Because that's, yeah, that context switching is a big part of what is adding to this feeling of overwhelm and to burnout. So thank you. That's a beautiful segue. Any other thoughts on that one? Yeah. Such an important point. And that was one of the big things that we felt in that early part of COVID. And it's interesting that that's continued on, is that those general sort of walk past the desk discussions that used to happen quite naturally and we'd learn a huge amount, that now has to be scheduled as a 15-minute video conference sort of call in Zoom or Teams or whatever. So it changes so many dynamics. And I think you've actually really hit on a point that sometimes working from home isn't actually helping with the work-life balance, sometimes because it's bringing it into the house. And if you don't have a separate section, if you've got a little area in the lounge room or you're sharing offices or things like that, and the kids are coming in or your border collie's throwing his toy onto your lap, you know, right when you're in the middle of a meeting, then yes, that is adding to the anxiousness, you know. And so let's have a think about, and remind me if I don't bring it up, but when we talk about what are some of the solutions for some of those things, yeah, give me a bit of a prompter, all right, if I don't bring it up. But thank you, that's a really good point. So what does this lead to? So that sense of overwhelm, the constant things that are happening, the task switching that we're doing, task switching. So, you know, if you think I'm really good at multitasking, no, you're not. That's a fucking myth. It's task switching. And I love that you use that phrase, because task switching is exhausting for the brain. Because, you know, you've heard of mindfulness. Why is mindfulness good? It's because you're focusing, you're challenging the brain to just sort of stay in that one zone, and it might be just a body scan. I just count. I count and I just touch my fingers to have multiple sources of things that my brain has to concentrate on, just the tapping of my fingers as I count. And so it keeps me on track, because I can get very easily distracted in those thoughts. But mindfulness is really good, and it helps give some quiet time to the brain to put all of the scattered pieces of the puzzle together and make some sense of it. When we're task switching, and, you know, especially if we're trying to learn new things or do new things, our prefrontal cortex can use more blood sugar than all of our other organs combined in that point in time. So when you say at the end of the day at 5 o'clock, when I clock off, because I've been meeting, you're task switching a lot, and you go, I'm freaking exhausted, but I've just sat in a chair all day. It's because you've consumed so much blood sugar in your prefrontal cortex that you feel that brain fog. So it's actually quite normal for you to feel that way. So there's some things that we have to introduce in order to be able to give our brain a little bit of quiet time. In fact, mindfulness is a really incredible one. I struggle with it sometimes. I need to remind myself to be mindful. I need to be mindful and demure to be mindful. But it's 2 minutes or 5 minutes of mindfulness can give you 2 hours to 5 hours of increased productivity. So why wouldn't you use something sort of so simple to be able to give yourself a little bit of clarity, reduce some of the brain fog when we have all of these pressures in life? Now, one of the things that happens when we're feeling burnout, when we're going through tough times, when we're going through overwhelm, what do we invent for ourselves? What was that? Well, yes, stress. And then how do we deal with the stress? We develop a coping mechanism. Yeah. I need a drink so badly after the day I've had. I don't know if you've ever uttered that phrase. I might have a couple of times. So we invent little things to cope. And depending on, if you've had some trauma in your life, you might have other coping mechanisms that fall into place. It might be gambling. It might be, smoking. It might be drugs, and I'm listing some really great habits there, aren't I? Sometimes there's good coping mechanisms that people do, like going to the gym or, taking the dog for a walk or things like that. But sometimes some of them can be very unhealthy habits. And it might be that we let the anxiousness get to us and we take it out on our partner, we take it out on our family, or we take it out on ourselves. Our own internal voice, might be very tough on us. And that's where these habit loops come into play. And I mentioned this at last year's UXCamp. I don't know about you guys, but during COVID lockdowns, I got really good at alcohol, like really good. And so there was a bit of a wake-up call for me there that I had to, break that habit. And the wake-up call was that I was doing my neuroscience project on habit loops, and my left hand went out for a Jack and Coke, and there wasn't one there. And I went, well, fuck me, I know what I'm doing my assignment on. And so I conducted a scientific experiment to myself on breaking that habit loop, which I'll talk about with you in a moment. But those unhealthy habit loops aren't just very conscious things that we might think of there. There's another thing that is adding to it. And this comes into where we've been on our devices all day, and hopefully that's big enough that you can see that. Probably a bad choice in colours at a design conference. I put that slide together on the train on the way in here, just, revealing a little bit too much. But actually those numbers are a little bit down from previous years. So, yes, there's 6 hours and stuff in using internet connectivity, whether it's for shopping or news items or things like that. But the worldwide average is around 2 hours and 25 minutes just on social media. And TikTok is one of the bigger ones in itself. So for Australia, just in the last year, we've dropped that down under the two-hour mark to 1 hour and 51 minutes. I spend that just on stupid little games on my phone, and there's times where I was getting really addicted. I'm fucking gonna reveal my nerdy self now, to a Star Trek game. And I got really addicted to it. And I thought, I'm wasting so much time on this. I've got to put that aside. And so I did. And so I just had this really dumb, simple game from years and years back, low graphics, low-fi, but it was just, I could do it 5-minute increments. I'd get my little dopamine hit from it. And I was conscious of that I was doing it to chase the dopamine. And then I could put it down instead of spending hours on it. Then I downloaded this tower warfare thing, crypto crossword sort of will guess the numbers and letters, and I felt like I was being a super spy in uncoding these sentences, and it was some lyrics from Guns N' Roses, and so I got addicted to these games, and then I'm going, and my phone actually gives me a warning. You spent 2 hours and 13 minutes on games today. I was like, oh shit, okay, right, well, and then I'll go and I'll start doing some work, and then for some reason my phone comes into my hand, and I go, oh yeah, I should finish that. Oh shit, what am I doing? Why? Because my brain is creating a habit loop. Now it's sort of invested in getting the dopamine hit from that game. And social media is the same thing. It does that same thing to us. So what does that lead to? And when we're talking about burnout, it's the distraction, it's the dopamine chase, which ultimately leads to depression in one form or another. So when we're feeling despondent and we're struggling to get up in the mornings, then we need to examine what are we doing to our brains, what are the task switching that we're constantly doing, and the habit loop things that we're introducing, the bad habit loops that are creating fog for our brain and creating work that feels like we're relaxing. But if we're on TikTok, every 5 seconds, 30 seconds, minute, we're changing topic, and some of them might be, you know, some great comedy about, you know, some of the US political state, and then, you know, it's about some of the awful things that Donald Trump has done, and then it's about some of the stuff that's happening overseas, some war-torn things, and then it's, you know, some new latest dance trend. Well, that's freaking task switching at an extreme measure. We think it's entertaining, but it's our brain loves bright, shiny things. And I'm like, oh, yeah, oh, that's cool, it's cool. But it's actually adding to the brain fog. And when do we most often do it? Well, I don't know about you, but I get into bed at night and I'm going, oh, yeah, I just, you know. And then an hour later, I'm going, what the frig am I doing? Put that down, read my novel, sort of thing. And that adds, that's one of those bad habits that adds to that. Now, for me, this was a little bit of a wake-up call in many respects just very recently, because I'd been chasing up some issues. There's some family history around my liver and stuff. So on my maternal grandfather's side, there's a history of lung disease called fibrosis alveolitis. And on my maternal grandmother's side, there's liver and pancreas issues. So I could have won Tattslotto 10 times over without having those sort of odds of super autoimmune diseases. And so I've done a lot of work from a lung perspective. COVID I took very seriously because, you know, I've watched 5 people die of lung diseases, and it's the most horrible thing to watch someone suffer with that. But for me, there was this issue in my right quadrant where it would feel like my intestine had twisted and nothing could go down. It was 8 out of 10 pain levels. It was extreme. And there was only one thing for the food to do, and that was to come back up, and it would be awful. And I'd get it back up, and then I'd take a Buscapan or something, and then I'd feel this, and it'd feel like it'd unravel, and then suddenly I was all good. And so that was when I reduced the alcohol and changed a bit of the diet, although that wasn't sort of, I didn't do a huge amount with that. As much as I could have. There was times where I sort of did. And then I was chasing it up with this liver specialist because, you know, there's a bit of hemochromatosis and some other things that can lead to some issues with the liver. And they'd often do a gastroscopy because one of the things is what's called Mallory-Weiss syndrome. So it's basically varicose veins in your esophagus. So you could eat something sharp, bleed internally and die. You know, just light subjects before lunch. Now, when I was a little bub, one of my uncles in England died from that very thing. So, you know, we'd chase that up and went to liver specialist at the start of the year, just doing a regular sort of 6-monthly checkup. He's going, oh, your bloods are looking good. Listen, it's been a while since we've done a gastroscopy. Why don't we do one of those? I'm going, yeah, no worries. You know, I get hungry overnight, I go into the hospital, I'm sitting there starving, I walk in, have a great chat with some of the nurses and the staff, they get me to count back from 10, I wake up sitting in a really cool chair, I have some sandwiches, some apple juice and cheese and bickies. The hardest thing to organise is who's going to pick me up and take me home, because I can't drive or work for the day. Yeah, that's cool. But they found a lump in my duodenum, because the gastroscopies hadn't gone that far before. So the duodenum sits between the stomach and the small intestine. It's that little vestibule that sort of helps prepare things to break down into the small intestine. So that thought of my small intestine twisted, there was actually this lump that was right near the common bile duct and the pancreatic duct, which are the very key things to allow food to come. I'm giving you whole biology lessons here. But it was quite important. And what was happening, if I was having fatty food or alcohol, this lump would get inflamed, block those ducts, and so nothing could get processed. So there was only, you know, one way. It was like, all right, get the fuck out of here. Not that way, the way you came in. You know, so I'd bring all this stuff up. And so they said, listen, we found this lump. We took a little bit of a biopsy. The tissues come back. It's all fine, but it is an area that can be quite cancerous, and it's got access to everything. So we have to jump on it. I'm going, great. Glad we're taking this seriously. CT scan, again, good news, but not conclusive. We'll get you back in for another gastroscopy. We'll take a bigger biopsy and we'll do a little ultrasound while we're in there. Great. I get another, you know, some sandwiches and some more apple juice. This is good. So I go back in. I wake up and I'm scoffing my stuff down. I'm going, oh, God, it feels good to have some food in my stomach. And, oh, there's a pain I haven't felt in 6 years. Nurse, can I get a sick bag? And she's gone, oh, you're going to throw up? And I said, in 15 minutes I will. And she's like, what? Yeah, no, this has flared something up. And so we ended up finding out that this lump had been causing all of those issues. 2 days later, I ended up back in hospital. The surgery was done in Box Hill. I ended up back in Monash because that's around the corner from home. I was in extreme pain, didn't eat for about 72 hours, didn't sleep for about 36 because they had perforated when they'd taken the bigger biopsy. So I ended up with a massive infection. I ended up with a tube up my nose and down my throat, which feels like someone's poking your brain with a hot poker. And the pain from that, I was taking the pain meds for that, not my stomach, because I had this bag. So I had some apple juice, it'd go in and then come out the bag. So I had this, continuously. I've gone off on a tangent there, as I often do. So why am I telling you that? Well, because this was a big wake-up call, yeah? Because now I have clear understanding of what had been causing that pain and why I hadn't suffered from it was because of, some of the changes. But now I'd been thinking about going back to the gym, but I'd moved house and I was away from the gym that I really liked, that had the really cool sort of rock sauna and this really cool steam sauna that you could go in and you could hack it because you could get some wet towel, put it on the thermostat and suddenly because it thought it was cold, so it'd fill the room with steam and someone would sprinkle some eucalyptus oil and it was freaking awesome and I loved that, but I was miles away from there now. So my excuse was, well, if they don't have that, well, I'm not going to the gym then. Meanwhile, my adult son, who's quite the fitness fanatic, after this scare, he's gone, fuck it, Dad, I'm buying your gym membership. You are going. I went, oh, yeah, all right. And so I did. He took away the excuse. One little thing, a few bucks a week, but it was one little thing. Now, if you've ever read Atomic Habits, or you've read Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit, which I absolutely love. I really love the detail that Charles Duhigg goes into. He talks about this in terms of keystone habits. Now, I sort of picture this in terms of one of the Mythbusters episodes where they had this little tiny little thing and they push it onto a domino that's sort of 3 times its size, and then the next one's 3 times its size, and this little tiny domino pushed over a 1-ton massive steel thing full of water to crush a car. It was very cool. But it showed you that one little thing could make this massive impact. And that's what Charles Duhigg talks about in terms of keystone habits. So it might be, many years ago when I hadn't been getting to the gym a bit, I changed one thing. I put my gym bag in my car because I lived right near the station. I'd come back home on the train, jump in the car, go home, go to get changed to go to the gym. And then I go, oh, I had a late night at work. I'm hungry. No, I'll just have dinner. I won't go to the gym tonight. And then when I made that one change and put the bag in the car, I went, bag's in the car, let's just go, let's just do 10 minutes on the bike, 5 minutes on the rowing machine, have a sauna, of course, and then I'll feel good and then I'll have dinner. It still won't be too late at night. I'll just have something sort of quick and simple. And so I got the routine going and started getting fit again. And then obviously, COVID interrupted that and, put on the kilos and everything. And so now, taking that excuse away, that one little thing, I'm buying you the gym membership, Dad. It's just that one bit of paperwork that I was going, nah, I can't be bothered. Now I'm going back there. I've been getting there 3 or 4 times a week. I don't mind telling you, the guns are feeling pretty cool. I've lost a couple of kilos despite a few sort of birthday celebrations for my partner and her daughter. And, you would not believe the calories in a beer, But as my son said, well, now you're thinking in terms of you're looking at the beer, you're looking at the label, and you're making a conscious decision about the calories of it and going, actually, no, I will have a lemon, lime and bitters, thanks very much, or I'll have a soda water, and making more informed choices. That one little thing, that one gym membership had this cascade. And now, I've got to have some greens. Normally it would sort of be great protein and I love chefing it up. My Instagram is my dog and my food and my kids, and my dog's got his own Instagram as well. So, I would often sort of chef it up and it's, hashtag Troy's Kitchen. And so I do this thing and it would be, heaps of protein and a couple of little veggies. Now it's half to 2/3 of a plate of veggies and it's like a whole zucchini or a whole broccoli or something like that and just a bit of protein. And so that change has also sort of flowed on, and now I'm starting to feel better. I'm finding it easier to sleep. I'm waking up better. I have so much trouble with sleep that I then need to do the mindfulness. I need to put the fucking phone down. I charge the phone away from my bed. And I've got my book there, my novel, because that helps me change that. So those couple of little changes all start to add up, and there's this cascade effect. So I'm seeing a few sort of nodding heads. So is there some examples of little things that you guys might have changed, or a keystone habit that you're done? Up the back in the green hoodie, yeah?
One of those habit books, I can't remember which one, but essentially you're making the bad habits harder and the good habits easier. So like you said, your gym bag in the car, it's easier then, right, to go to the gym. Taking out a bit of effort. So yeah, I find good habits, get all my stuff ready for the office the day before, so it's easy to go into the office. There's no excuse that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Put the phone in another room, make that harder. So, yeah.
Beautiful. I love it. And sorry, Sarah? Yeah.
No, I've actually been reading a book called Dopamine Detox.
Oh, nice.
And I was going to do a pitch on it. So it's very similar to this, but I'm no expert. But yeah, I have been very intrigued by that because the context switching in life alone, in work alone is a lot. And then you have all of these bad habits that you've acquired. And my main one was social media and like online shopping. And I found myself in this perpetual loop when I'm working from home, which is most of the time, where I'm getting up, going on my phone, then having a coffee, then sitting on my phone while I'm having my coffee, and then I go, okay, I'll start work, and then I go to start work, and then I pick up my phone again, and then all of a sudden it's like 11 o'clock. So I've taken that away, and even just in the space of like 2 days of not doing that, like I just deleted the apps off my phone and was like, just don't do it. It's not that hard to do. Like you'll find yourself trying to, pick up your phone to do something, but you just like, and you feel so much better.
There's a few people going, you delete the apps? What? See, that tells me a huge amount about you and about some of the mental discipline that you have to even sort of consider deleting that. Sean?
First one, I think, habit batching, I find really useful. So I just have a morning routine. Push-ups, have a vitamin D pill, and say it's affirmations and have a cold shower, right? If I don't do one of those things, it feels so strange. I have to do all four in the morning. So it's like batched all the habits together in one go, where I have to kind of do them all sequence. So it's not all out useful. Right? And then deleting the apps, I deleted Facebook, and then I started scrolling Instagram. I'm scrolling LinkedIn. And then I deleted LinkedIn, but then I started like browser moding, like really shit browser. And then I used the newsfeed eradicator. If anyone's used this is really useful on desktop. It basically kills your newsfeed and replaces it with an inspirational quote. And that if you want to argue, your mind will find a way.
Yeah. And what I love is that's so cool, because what you've just demonstrated there is that, yes, you deleted the habit loop, but your brain went, yeah, fuck, no, I'm still going with the habit, dude. I'm still having my little response, and I'm still going to find a way. So it goes to the point, sorry, what was your name, mate? Luke. As to Luke said, you've got to replace. It's not just a matter of taking the thing away. You've got to replace it because the brain will try to find something. So, yeah, there was another hand up that shut up. Yeah, you go.
How we train the brain to stop the bad habits, but it's hard to identify when you have a bad habit.
Yes. So we need to be a scientist of our own little experiment, don't we? So there's a big part of the mindfulness aspect to this and being very self-aware. And it was interesting going away from my partner's weekend a few weeks ago. We went right out to the country to Meetung, sort of out Lakes Entrance sort of way past Bairnsdale. And we're sitting there with one of her friends who is a raging alcoholic, and she got remarried recently, and her partner had, said, oh, I think you're an alcoholic, darling. And she goes, no, I'm not. I just like to have a drink, most days, and I don't have to have it every day, but I just like Fridays, I like to relax, and I'll have a couple, because why not? It's on Saturday, I don't have to get up, and you know me, I get up anyway, and I'll go sailing, and I'll do it, and then I'm with everyone, and I'll have a few drinks. I'm not an alcoholic. fuck yes, you are, you know, sort of thing. And the more that I then just sort of tried to handle it in a gentle way about habit loops, and everyone at the table was going, see, that's you, and he's going, no, 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 no. And then it was just excuse after excuse after excuse, because what's happening there is you're pulling on a thread of cognitive dissonance, and the brain doesn't want to reveal that, no, you are a raging alcoholic, because that's an ego and a self-trigger mechanism. And so there was protective mode, and we go into excuses and bargaining. I heard that clap and I went, fuck, I haven't gone way overtime, have I? No, but we're running pretty sweet at the moment, so which is really rare for me. Normally go way overtime. So thank you. That's really amazing feedback, and you've provided some really good components of other areas that I wanted to discuss. So thank you. And my point for you, Sarah, is just fucking pitch next year. Get up there, dude. Like, just do it. It's so much fun. And I think we'd all sort of really love that digital detox topic. So what are some of the things that habit loops and finding that keystone habit? This is the harder thing. Identifying the habit is hard, and whether it's good or useful in our life, but then how can we trade it out? So for example, with alcohol, for me, I was thinking, I'm going to have some peppermint tea at night time instead of a Jack Daniels, right? And I'd go and I'd make my peppermint tea. Why? Because it's got a mint. I love minty things. It's warm, it's cozy. It'll give me some nice feelings. And I had my nice cup of peppermint tea with my finger up in the air, and it was beautiful. And my brain went, that's not a fucking Jack and Coke. Dude, seriously, come on. And so, but maybe I need something carbonated. So I just had some soda water. And my brain went, no, there's nothing. Like, there's no sweetness. It's just, yeah. And so I could feel the addiction. I could feel the habit loop, like, because I became really sensory aware of everything that my body was doing and telling me. And the moment I go, fuck, I need a drink, or I need a drink to be able to sleep tonight, it's going, no, you don't. And I need to identify those excuses and be brutal on myself. And so I got some lemon lime bitters cordial, and I poured in the soda water. I was going, yeah, well, no, we're getting there, but I'd still really like that Jack and Coke right now. And so all I did was changed a few things. I put the lemon, lime and bitters cordial in the alcohol cabinet. I got some limes and I did a ceremony. So I went up and I got the lemon, lime and bitters out. I got my glass out, got my special glass out. I got the soda water, I got the lime, I got the cutting board, I got the knife. I sliced up some lime, I squeezed it in there, I mixed it all up, and I went down to the couch and I sat there and I drank it, and my brain went, yeah, it's a fucking placebo, but good on you for the effort. Yeah, no, we're good. And I really felt my brain, feel that. And that became my thing, and I broke it and changed that whole relationship. I still, like, don't get me wrong, like, if I'll go to have a drink, it needs to be a very conscious thing, because if I do have that feeling, fuck, I need a drink. In the last 5 years, I went through a really horrible, ugly custody battle. There was a lot of times my brain went, I need a drink. And so I have to say to myself, well, that's definitely the time you shouldn't have one, because you go straight back into that old habit loop. So let's not even buy any alcohol. Let's not do it. Let's not even get sugar, because then the other thing is that when I have the alcohol, I'm going, oh, I need something salty. I need some taste. So then I go and eat the shit. And I'm saying, oh, I'm putting on the weight because I'm drinking the alcohol. No, because I'm drinking the alcohol, I'm eating all the shit. And it's all of the bad habit loops that play off that one keystone habit of going, I just have one. So I changed that. So that's become, a regular thing. So this is my future casting here. It's probably sort of more about this. I'm somewhere in between there, yeah. Yeah. The image generation hallucinations, my God, if I showed you the things that went from old man to young man to woman to back to man, it was like weird stuff going on. And even here I've cut off some of the stuff at the edge. But, I used to look like this back in the day. I used to have a stomach of iron. Now it needs ironing, so I'm going to get back there, though. But that one thing of, like, I'm not having, kombucha and kale every meal, but, trying to introduce a few things. So what is the scientific, the neuroscience backing around habit loops? And this is sort of directly from some of the stuff from Charles Duhigg's book. And sorry about the old sort of shitty graphics. It was, from an old neuroscience assignment that I sort of went, oh, I've already got an image for that. It's a bit shit, but it does the job. It's the cue, routine, reward, all right? So recognising the cue, that's the really hard part around what is the habit that you want to break, what is maybe the vice that you have, recognising that it is a bad habit, then recognising, for want of a better word, the trigger, the cue. So obviously, my trigger is sitting at night, watching TV and my left hand going out for a drink. Well, there's a pretty obvious cue for me there, but there was just that feeling of, I'll go to the cupboard, I'll go to the fridge, I'll grab a drink. So recognising that maybe that boredom, that I've slowed down and my brain's got a bit of time to think, or I've just dropped the kids off and I'm coming home and have to deal with some of that stuff that I've had to deal with, recognising, and I've got an Uncle Dan's Murphy's right near my place and I can easily drop in on the way home, it's right there, but it's like, no, let's just not go there. That, and then there's Daniel's Donuts right around the corner. So yes, let's not replace it with sugar, all right? So then it's the specific choices and the actions and creating a new habitual response, all right? Creating a new ceremony in order to be, and a new routine, and repeating that over time so that starts to replace the older habits. So for me, it was the lemon, lime and bitters and cutting up the lime. And then when I was going to social events, taking 0 beers. And it wasn't so much about taking 0 beers and hiding and saying, no, I've got a beer. It was, I'm having a 0 beer. And they're going, why are you having a 0 beer? Oh, because I drove here tonight and I want to be careful, want to drive home. But actually, I'm conducting a bit of a scientific experiment myself. So I was actually chasing the dopamine hit of explaining what I was doing and getting to talk about neuroscience because I knew I'd get a high off that because I love that stuff. And so I was replacing the social need to get drunk and a little bit silly. Now, if you do have a little bit of a change to that and you've got a work environment that loves to have some social events and have a few drinks, stay sober. It's the best. Like some of the shit that people get up to when they start getting drunk and shots at the bar. Fucking yeah, I'm going to stay sober. This is going to be awesome, and people start telling you the same story 5 times over and you're going, oh, this is great. And, it's the next morning. Okay, the best on ground vote goes to, these people. But it's really interesting when you step outside of that and you realise, actually, I don't need the alcohol to be really entertained and to have some fun and to have some good things. So, and that goes with any of those components, because what then happens is the results and the memory encoding starts to happen. So Charles Duhigg talks about how they learnt some of this, and I've spoken about this before. Hands up if you do or don't want to hear it. So it's about mice. Have I told you about the mice in a maze? About the habit loops? Yeah, Sean remembers it from last year. So the way they discovered this, someone worked out a way to put a little diode, a little scanner thing on a mice brain. And then they had a little maze and they had a trapdoor. And at the other end of the maze, there was a trapdoor, but there was some cheese behind it. And a buzzer would go off, the mouse would come out, and it very quickly learnt the maze after only a few goes to get to the end. And it would press a button and another buzzer would go off and the cheese would come out and it would get its reward. So cue, the initial buzzer goes off, the routine, get through the maze, get to the end, press the button, get the reward. And they watched with this little scanner thing, the dopamine hit go off in the brain as it got the reward. And then they just kept repeating the experiment and the mouse would solve the maze instantly, remembered it, get to the end, hit the button, get the reward. And then they started watching the dopamine hit come closer and closer to the initial buzzer sound. So it hadn't got the reward yet, but the dopamine hit was coming. And then when it was right at the start, the buzzer went off, the dopamine hit came, it went to the maze, pressed the button, they didn't open the door for the cheese. And the mouse went nuts. Give me the cheese, because that's what our brain do. That is the symbolization of addiction and of habit loops. Our brain is in expectation of the habit loop, and it gives us a dopamine hit because it's a routine that we're so used to. So the reason why Sean feels uncomfortable when he doesn't do his 4 things is because his brain's already given him the dopamine hit in expectation, and it feels weird that all of those routines haven't been carried out. And so it's asking, it's begging, you're hacking into our own little OCD of where I need to do the routine, I need to do the things, you know, which is great. It's a really powerful thing that we can use habit loops for superhuman productivity. Because what we're doing is, the reason why we form habit loops is to not use blood sugar in the prefrontal cortex. So our basal ganglia, and for physical ones, our striatum, form these habit loops so it becomes unconscious. So when you first learn to drive a car, you're going, oh, freaking, what's going on? Now you pull into your driveway and you go, did I stop at that light? That's the combination of habit loops, right? It's taken the thinking and the process away because it makes it easier for the brain. It saves energy, and the brain loves to save energy. It loves reward, it hates risk. So it'll move towards reward, it'll move away from risk. And so by saving energy, it creates this loop for you, all right? So for your little habit plan, if you identify a habit and you want to replace it, remember your trigger. Be really conscious, conduct that scientific experiment of yourself of what is the initial thing that makes you want to reach for that chocolate bar, or to go and do that thing, or to have a cigarette, or to vape, or to, you know, it's something that you want to change. So now a pre-mortem. So we heard of post-mortem and all of the CSI sort of things and stuff, you know, looking at all of the evidence afterwards. We'll conduct a pre-mortem of what your body will do and what's it in expectation of, and learn when that doesn't work and learn what will work. So I had this a few weeks in. I'd done all some yard work. It was a sunny day. I'd, you know, mowed the lawns. I'd be in the garage and oh yeah, manly, you know, sort of thing. Want a beer? I'm doing a barbecue now. I'm doing a barbecue, beer. They go together. I went, no, because if I have one, I want a Jack and Coke, and I won't touch the sides. It'd be so good because I haven't had one for a few weeks, and there's half a bottle of Gentleman Jack there, and it's been sitting there for weeks. That's the longest it's ever lasted in my house. And sure enough, I did the pre-mortem, lasted till about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and then went, I'll just have one. And I did. Woke up feeling so shit the next morning, just as I had predicted. But because I'd done that pre-mortem, I went, well, okay, this now affirms that I knew exactly what my body was going to do, so let's not do that again. And it really helped me. That one step back was a really strong thing in helping me to not do that again. And so I will attain. And what's the goal and the progress? Now, James Clear talks about what it is that you like. So I will go to the gym because I like the way that my biceps and my chest feel after I've done a workout. I feel strong, I feel good. It's like, yes, I like that feeling, you know. Not when I first went back and started doing the stuff in competition with my son, and the next day I couldn't scratch my ears because I couldn't move, you know. That's not good. I just do low weights, high repetitions, allow my body, my older body now, to get used to that thing so that I do feel good. And you attach the habit loop to the thing you like, because that's got more emotion around it. It will be tangible. I don't like the way I feel the next morning after alcohol. I don't like feeling foggy. I don't like having memory gaps. I want to be in control. I like feeling in control. I like waking up fresh. All right, so there's some of the things for me. Now, mindful of time, greatest habit loop. I just had to include pictures of my dog. This little guy, I got him a couple of years ago, and he really holds me to account on so many things from a mental health perspective. But you know what the most beautiful thing is? This guy, any pet, will teach you about habit loops. I can be as quiet as all hell. He can be upstairs, the other side of the house, and if I open my sock drawer, where are we going, Dad? He's like, there, you know. Like there's some great TikTok things of someone opening a CC's or Doritos packet. You know, the dog was, and then next thing, and a big drawer hanging down, you know. But they recognize habit loops. So if you want to identify what a habit loop is, look at your pets, right? Watch how they react to the things that you do. I've got buttons around my house so that my dog will tell me what he wants. He goes over and says food, you know, and when he's finished his food, he says done. And then when he wants to go outside, he goes out. And if he wants to go for a walk, he goes walk, 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 walk. Or he goes up to the drawer where his leads are and he nuzzles it, you know. Or if he wants to go out the front to see his girlfriend Bear, the German Shepherd next door, he goes to the back door, presses out, and then runs to the front door. He goes, yeah, let's go, Dad. You know, if I'm feeling down and dejected, he's not much of a cuddly dog, but he'll come up to me and he'll do what he's doing here. He'll put his face against mine and go, it's okay, Dad, I gotcha. and then he'll lick his butt. And, or he'll grab a toy and he'll throw it on my lap and he'll say, you've had your funk time. Let's do something for me now because that'll make you feel better, Dad, And sure enough, it does. So our pets are great habit loop recognition devices. Now, we spoke about making the habit loop, the good habit loop, feel better than the bad habit loop, as Luke was sort of talking about. So when you first go to do this new thing, this is what it will feel like. It'll feel like, oh my God, why am I doing this? And I don't want to. My brain wants the old habit loop, and it will be full of really tough emotions. But as you work through it and you get into that routine, so sometimes for the gym in those early stages, I didn't want to do a huge amount. And sometimes I didn't go to work out. I just went to do the infrared sauna. It's not the same as the other saunas, but I've learned to appreciate it. I go in there and I microwave myself and it's really good. I go in and I'm going, this isn't hot enough. This is shit. And then 10 minutes later, it's pouring off me. And, I feel like I've been in a swimming pool. I'm that saturated. And so then I feel good. So I started doing that. Now I've got into the routine. I've got into the habit loop. I've actually become one of those people who want to go to the gym. Weird. But I've got this thing. I'll go and I'll do a bit of a workout. And then maybe today, if I've got a bit of time, I'll do some sauna afterwards because I know that's my little reward for myself. And in that sauna, I do little mindfulness things, or I read a book, I read habit loop books, or I come up with this idea about being busy, burnt out, and bad habits that sort of hit me like that when I wasn't going to pitch this year. And then it becomes habit. But it takes that time. You've got to allow it. So on average, around 66 days, but it can be anywhere between 18 and 255 days. All right, there's a big difference. So holding it to the the love, the real tangible thing is what will keep you there. All right. But most of all, if you've got a little bit of a thing around, how can I get the motivation? How can I create a good habit loop? One of the really great tricks from a neurodiverse perspective that ADHD people use is a thing called body doubling. All right, and it might just be that the person is in the same room as you and you've got to wash the dishes and it's the last thing you want to do. But if you just say, oh, can you just come and sit in the room with me because I've got to do the dishes and can you just talk to me and stuff? And it's the little thing that they do just to give some intrigue and give them something to focus on not worry about the boring thing, but have something else there. Now, for me, I find this, really good in a sense. Like my son says, all right, Dad, you want to come to the gym? And I'm like, oh, it's the fucking last thing I feel like doing right now. But no, I'm going to go. And I'll go. And again, it's a good bodily doubling thing, but he needs it as well. He's actually got ADHD. And I'll watch him in the room and he'll go to the fridge and go, whoa, what was it? And I said, your drink's behind the milk in behind that thing. He goes, oh, yeah. And you were going to get your socks out of the dryer. Oh, yeah, thanks, sort of thing. So it's, we help, work those things through. So I think there's actually a really thing for, even if you are neurotypical, there's a benefit of body doubling because you've got an accountability, a responsibility there. It might just be you sit on a Zoom call with someone while you're doing something. Yeah.
Still got stuff I need to do, and so we would have it blocked in our calendars a couple of days a week, and literally that would just say what we want to get done for that hour or whatever, and then both on mute, but you need to see the person on the call to keep you accountable at your desk and do the things, and then at the end go, how'd you go, what did you get done? So that was really good. It's not everyone's cup of tea. Like, you've got to find someone who will understand.
There's a trust.
Yeah. And another thing that I do is what someone taught me, like chore chats. So like my AirPods in, make a phone call and just get that thing done around the house that I want to do, and we're both doing it at the same time. Now wash more. I find really effective. And the other thing I just wanted to mention was some of what you've explained. So I got a work coach, life coach last year, and something that she does a million quotes from a million books, but one of them was you won't always be motivated, so you'll have to be disciplined. And so what you were explaining before about then making an act of doing that drink and stuff like that is when you just don't feel like it, you have to be disciplined to then become motivated, I think.
Yeah, beautiful. Like, you are so fucking in tune. This whole discussion came from motivation's bullshit, stick to the discipline. So that's where the whole thoughts come from. And then I sort of got the B thing going. So yeah, it's for me, you know, especially when you are burnt out, you don't feel motivation, but turning up, just doing that one thing. And it might be that you actually need to go see a psychologist, might need to get, you know, serotonin uptake inhibitor or something to just change your brain chemistry. That's all good because it will have a big difference in your effect to be able to get back into that cycle and create these habit loops. So if you're struggling to identify it, but you're feeling despondent, it might mean that you need a bit of counselling, or you need some help, or you might need some medication, or you might need to change the diet, and you might need to do some of the exercise. So if you're struggling, if you've got the brain fog, and I've come back to that point of you're at home, you're doing the thing, taking that walk outside, either with the pet or with the kids, if you've got a great day, or, you know, doing something that is mindful, doing something that you really love. It might be just going into the garage or going and doing the dishes and doing some mundane things. That's a time for the brain to relax. And that's when you can have your aha moments. The brain needs the quiet to have the aha moment. So to help with the overwhelm of that day-to-day back-to-back meetings, that can be really important. So we could go on forever, but lunch is going to be served in about 5 or 10 minutes, so I will leave it there. But my main point is just be excellent to each other. You know, I always love wrapping up with that. And of course, now I get to throw a couple of photos of Neo in there. If you do want to grab me on LinkedIn, if you haven't already, or if you want to, you know, sort of have a little bit of a chat, I've got a little TidyCal thing, which is sort of very similar to Calendly. But otherwise, yeah, thank you so much for your interactions today and your really lovely points, and you've all been really in sync with some of that stuff, and I'm here to sort of chat all day. So yeah, thanks very much, guys.